So it's crazy living in the United States of America. Entire political campaigns. Imagine this, right? What is a political campaign? You are running to become a politician, right? What is a politician? Someone who crafts legislation and governs the people, you know? But, like, we have entered a war, of a culture war in America, where there is an entire political party, I'm talking about the Republican Party, that they don't govern. Like, they are principally opposed to governing. They don't craft policy. They don't do legislation, you know. They don't do anything other than signal their support for a genocide of minority groups. You know, in 2020, they wanted to commit a genocide against Black Americans. In 2022, they switched over to transgender and gay Americans. Now, again, they still want to commit a genocide against Black Americans. They're just not talking about it as much. 2022 had the most police murders of any year in this country. But either way, I just want to show a picture real quick. Let me go get this. Think about what has happened in this country since 2016. Right? Does anyone remember this? Does anyone remember this photo? This was a photo from either 2015 or 2016 of Donald Trump, Republican candidate. I think this was at the Republican convention, was it not? Holding up a flag, a pride flag, upside down, saying LGBT to the power of S for Trump. This was in 2016. Donald Trump said he was the most pro-gay, pro-trans president ever elected. And they campaigned on that as if it was a good thing. This is 2016. Well, now it is 2023. And Donald Trump has released a campaign update on what he wants to do with transgender people if elected as president. Let's watch.
The left-wing gender insanity being pushed on our children is an act of child abuse. Very simple. Here's my plan to stop the chemical, physical, and emotional mutilation of our youth. On day one, I will revoke Joe Biden's cruel policies on so-called gender-affirming care. Ridiculous. A process that includes giving kids puberty blockers, mutating their physical appearance, and ultimately performing surgery on minor children. Can you believe this?
So I love that he says, can you believe this? Because none of that is true. Puberty blockers do not mutate anybody. Puberty blockers were, again, invented for not trans people, cisgender people. There is a couple of conditions that affect children's bodies that result in early puberty. Kids have been documented theoretically going through puberty at the age of 6 or 7. Their bodies are too young, and it can cause major health complications to be flooded with puberty hormones when you're that young. So they invented puberty blockers, and they are completely reversible. Now, if you're on puberty blockers from age, let's say, 12 to 48, yeah, maybe there could be some problems. No one is taking puberty blockers from age 12 to 48. That's not happening. No one is taking puberty blockers from 12 to 16. That's not happening. Usually people take puberty blockers for a couple of years and make a decision on whether or not it's working for them, right? And then guess what happens? Wait for it. You stop the puberty blockers and then start hormone therapy, right? None of this is mutilation, right? If kids can purchase guns, if kids can drive cars, kids can decide what gender they are. It's not that hard, right? But again, Donald Trump went from this, LGBT to the power of S for Trump, to this, a 2-minute manifesto about how he wants to eradicate transgender people from existence. And we're only 30 seconds in.
I will sign a new executive order instructing every federal agency to cease all programs that promote the concept of sex and gender transition at any age. I will then ask Congress to permanently stop federal...
Note that he says at any age. As if to imply like 3-year-olds are getting sex changes. In many states in this country, mostly Republican states, child marriage is legal. Parents can essentially sell their children into marriages in multiple states in this country. So when we talk about grooming, right, as a country, as a culture, we're in the culture war, everybody. When we talk about grooming, I don't know, man. If I were running for office and grooming was my major concern, I would probably start with eradicating all child marriage laws. You think, right? Maybe. I would start there.
Federal taxpayer dollars from being used to promote or pay for these procedures, and pass a law prohibiting child sexual mutilation in all 50 states. It'll go very quickly.
So, I have a question. Does child sexual mutilation include circumcision? As a country, we have decided that anyone born with a penis must get their dick chopped off as kids. Sometimes within a couple of days, sometimes within a couple of weeks. They will take children that have dicks and cut them off. It's called circumcision. They say, God told me to cut my kid's dick off or some shit. Right? This happens every day in America. God was speaking to me in Jesus Christ, amen, told me to cut my dick off, or my kid's dick off, at the age of 3 hours old. Why don't Republicans talk about circumcision? I'm just curious. Like, if we're talking about mutilation, you know, just throwing that out there. Speaking of grooming, Donald Trump bragged on live television and radio interviews about watching 13-year-old and 14-year-old girls take their clothes off at beauty pageants, child beauty pageants that he hosted. He would watch the children take all of their clothes off and put on their magical dresses or whatever the fuck. He bragged about doing that on live radio and television interviews, saying things like, that's one of the benefits of hosting the pageant, is you get to go anywhere you want, including children's dressing rooms. And this guy is concerned about grooming.
I will declare that any hospital or healthcare provider that participates in the chemical or physical mutilation of minor youth will no longer meet federal health and safety standards for Medicaid and Medicare and will be terminated from the program immediately. Furthermore, I will support the creation of a private right of action for victims to sue doctors who have unforgivably performed these procedures on minor children. The Department of Justice will investigate Big Pharma and the big hospital networks to determine whether they have deliberately covered up horrific long-term side effects of sex transitions in order to get rich at the expense of vulnerable patients, in this case, very vulnerable.
So is he going to go after Big Pharma over the, I don't know, opioid crisis? What about insulin? Is he going to go after Big Pharma for SSRIs? Nah. Just transgender people. I mean, again, this is some crazy ass shit. I don't know what to tell y'all. Crazy ass shit. Donald Trump, who was very good friends with Jeffrey Epstein, is now trying to be a crusader to defend children. But again, it's not about children. Donald Trump doesn't give a shit about any of this. This is why Donald Trump in 2016 held up this flag, LGBT to the power of S for Trump. Because that was popular in 2016. In 2016, this gained him votes. In 2023, this gains him votes. What's the similarity? He's doing it for attention. He doesn't have any beliefs. But obviously Republicans know that. And Republicans, they love this shit. Republicans, this is a fact. If this makes you uncomfortable, that's not my fault. Republicans are the party of genocide. That's what they are. They advocate for genocide, and that's it. They don't advocate for any other policy at all. None. Zero. They don't care about, literally anything. I mean, like food safety, like, for example, like infrastructure. They don't care about it. They don't care about like our sewage systems, our water systems. They don't care about our air quality. They don't care about making sure our trains run on time. They only care about executing a genocide of minority groups. That's it.
We will also investigate whether Big Pharma or others have illegally marketed hormones and puberty blockers which are in no way licensed or approved for this use. My Department of...
They're no way licensed or approved for this use. What does that mean? Like, could he explain that? Or, I know he's just reading off a teleprompter, right? But they're not licensed or approved? What does that mean? You can go and get hormones at an informed consent clinic. They've been studied for decades. We know what the results are. Now, again, if you want to say that we don't know enough, I agree. We don't know enough about any kind of drug. Look at SSRIs, for example. We don't know enough about how they affect the brain. Does that mean we should ban them? So, yeah, if we want to fund more studies, I'm down. If Donald Trump were to said, I'm going to pause all transition healthcare and then put $500 million into funding all the research so we know what this does. And then, at the end of that 2-year period, we'll, that would be a different story. But it's not about that. It's not about, we got to find out the truth of what happens. They don't care about the truth, okay? Literally, the only possible thing they care about here is executing a genocide against minority groups. That's it. That's it. They just lie. It doesn't matter. So when they say hormones aren't approved to be used in transition, they're just lying. They're lying. When they say the effects of this have not been studied, they're lying. It's a lie. Again, what color is this pen? This pen is actually blue. If you think it's anything else, you're wrong. How many fingers am I holding up? The answer is 2. If you think anything else, you're wrong. This is 1984 shit, man. I don't know what to tell you. He's just lying. It's a lie. It's all a bunch of bullshit.
Education will inform states and school districts that if any teacher or school official suggests to a child that they could be trapped in the wrong body, they will be faced with severe consequences, including potential civil rights violations for sex discrimination.
So anyway, there's probably more of this, but I don't care. Anyway, we're fucked. And again, just to be very clear, it's not in the good dick way. 2 + 2 = 3, my friends. If I say it, it must be true. It must be true. If it wasn't true, why would I say it? But again, Americans, they're just dumb. Like, I need you to understand, Republicans especially, they are dumb, hateful freaks. That's what they are. I don't know what to tell you. They don't do research. They don't look into this stuff. They don't care. They don't talk to people that have transitioned. They don't care. They don't give a shit. They don't give a fuck. And again, even Donald Trump doesn't give a fuck. 2 cycles ago. He was the biggest pro-gay, pro-trans president we've ever seen. He got elected and then started banning transgender people from the military, etc., etc. Like, he doesn't care. He doesn't give a shit. Anyway. Whatever. He'll probably win the election because he's up in the polls against Biden. And Biden is probably going to run because he's a fucking narcissist. And we're probably going to have to deal with this. So, everyone, take your hat off for America. It's a great country. The best country.